Hi all, welcome. This video is about Transit Gateway. We will see what is Transit Gateway, what is Transit Gateway attachment, what is Transit Gateway route table, and we will see how to connect two VPCs in a peering connection using Transit Gateway. This is a hands-on exercise. So we'll create two VPCs and we will create subnets as required. We will launch EC2 instances in the two VPCs and then we will try to ping between these two EC2s. Initially it will fail and then we will use Transit Gateway to create that VPC peering connection and we will ensure that we can successfully ping between the two EC2s. So it will be a good learning experience for people who are preparing for AWS Solution Architect Associate exam or Cloud Practitioner exam. It's a good beginner's exercise. Okay, let's begin. So let's understand what is Transit Gateway. Transit Gateway is actually a regional virtual router for traffic flowing between your VPCs within a region or between your VPC in region A to another VPC in region B, or it can also act as a router between your VPCs and your on-premises networks. Before Transit Gateway, if you have to establish communication between two VPCs, you will establish what is called the peering connections. But with Transit Gateway, you connect all your VPCs and your on-premises network to your router, virtual router called Transit Gateway, and it acts as a routing hub. If VPC A need to communicate with VPC B, that communication can be routed through the Transit Gateway. And assume that your VPCs are distributed across two regions. These two squares represent two regions, and you may have a Transit Gateway in this region, which is this, and another Transit Gateway in the region B. So these two Transit Gateways can also be peered so that from VPC B you can communicate with VPC X or VPC Z. So you can have peer transit gateways as well. And all these VPCs and on-premise network and the peering transit gateways which are connected to a transit gateway are known as attachments. That is the term used for that. For example, this is an attachment, this is an attachment, this is another attachment. So if you have to see what is the definition of attachment, you can say attachment is a source or destination of packets which pass through the transit gateway. So basically any entity, whether it is VPC, on-premise network or another transit gateway, which needs to route their packets to another destination through the transit gateway, all these entities are attachments. And you need a route table associated with your transit gateway. You can have multiple route tables, but here I want to emphasize the need for route table attached with your transit gateway, which will determine how a particular message intended for a particular IP address, how it is routed. You can route it from VPC A to B or A to C or A to on-premise network or vice versa. So we are going to understand how we can do this, and in this lab exercise we will understand how I can create a transit gateway and how I can peer two VPCs using transit gateway. So let's start. So what we are going to do in this lab exercise is that we have a default VPC. This is the default VPC, and here we have a public subnet. Within that we will create an EC2. Then we will create a new VPC, and in this we will create a private subnet, and inside this there will be an EC2. We will try to ping from this default EC2 to the new EC2, which is part of the private subnet in the new VPC, and it will fail. So what we are going to do is we will create a transit gateway. We will try to establish connection between these two VPCs so that from this EC2 you can ping this EC2 in another VPC private subnet using private IP address. We'll have to create this new VPC subnet, then EC2, the security groups, and then we have to create transit gateway, its attachments, route table, etc. A lot of steps are there. We will do all those steps. Okay, as the first step, let's create a new VPC. Right now I only have default VPC, so let me create a new VPC, and I will create VPC only. That is fine. I'm going to name it as new VPC. Any name you can give, but I'm going to use new VPC. Most of the fields I will leave it with the default values. IPv4 CIDR, whatever is suggested here, let me go with that. 10.0.0.0/24. Come down. No IPv6 CIDR block. As I said, I will go with the default values. No other change, just create the VPC. Now I'll have to create a subnet inside this. So just go to subnets, and I'm going to create one private subnet. Here, whatever subnets are existing, you can see that everything belongs to the default VPC. So I need to create a private private subnet for the new VPC. For that, I will click on create subnet and select VPC ID. I will select new VPC. Subnet settings. What is the name you want to give? Let it be descriptive. Private subnet in new VPC. So that is easy for us to follow. That's all. Availability is on, no preference. That's okay. IP address. Let me go with whatever is suggested here. 10.0.0.0/28. Come down. Nothing else required. Click on create subnet. So we have created a new VPC and a subnet. What next? I want to create security groups which will allow SSH and ICMP, because we are going to do ping between two EC2s. So it should allow ping. That's why ICMP has to be allowed in these security groups. For the default VPC, I have already created the security group. For the new VPC, I need to create the security group. Create security group and go up. Security group name, I can say SGRP new VPC. Any name you can give, any meaningful name. VPC, here you have to select new VPC. That is important. Inbound rules, nothing is there. So add rules, and here you can add ICMP and everything else is same. Here 0.0, so that from every IP address it will allow. Even though ideally you should restrict this, but for this exercise I am giving access to all the IP addresses. Add rule, again select SSH here, source again 0.0, come down and create security group. So these two security groups are also created. Now we need two EC2s in these two VPCs. So how do we do that? Go to EC2 dashboard, come down, click on launch instance. First we will launch EC2 in default VPC. So name, I want to give it as EC2 in default VPC. You can choose Ubuntu, this is okay. Latest AMI is okay. Let's not change wherever it is not mandatory. T2 micro is okay. Key pair we need, so this KB2 key pair, that is fine. Come down. You don't need to edit this because default VPC, and you can leave this network part as default except security group. Select the SGRP default. Select that. Come down. That's it. Launch the instance. Now I need to launch one more instance that is within the new VPC. Click on launch instance. So this I'll name it as EC2 in new VPC. Come down, same Ubuntu, same latest AMI. Come down, instance type T2 micro is okay. Key pair not mandatory, but you can use if you want. Network settings you need to edit. Instead of default VPC, I want to use new VPC, and there is only one subnet anyway, so it will appear private subnet. Auto assign public IP, that is not possible because it is a private subnet. That is okay. Select existing security group, and here it will be SGRP new VPC. So that is also fine. Come down, launch the instance. Now I have to log into the default VPC EC2. So for that, let me start a terminal. So I am currently in downloads folder. I need to get the connection string for that particular EC2. Let me go and get that. So EC2 in default VPC, select that, go to connect, go to SSH client, copy this, come back to your terminal and paste it. Yes. So I am already inside my EC2 in default VPC. From here, I want to ping the other EC2 which is in the new VPC. So let me find the IP address of that. Go back to instances, and here is the IP address. Select it, come back and just do ping, paste. So it will fail because there is no connection between these two VPCs. You can wait for 2-3 minutes and then use Ctrl+C and come out of that. Okay, now we have to ensure that the connection between these two EC2s are established. So what is the first step for that? You have to create a transit gateway. So let me go back to my console again. Go to VPC and come down. Here you have the transit gateway somewhere at the bottom. Yes, transit gateways. Create transit gateway. So what is the name you want to give to transit gateway? I'll just give TGW 2024. And you need an autonomous systems number, which is required for your dynamic routing, BGP routing. If you go to info, it will say you can use any of these numbers between this. I'm going to use 65,001. So here there are a few features which are enabled here. We will not need this DNS support and VPN, ECMP support. That's okay. Remaining two, just keep it selected. Come down, transit gateway setter blocks. Let me choose 10.0.1.0/24. Okay, so that is also selected. Come down, you can create the transit gateway. You have to wait till it becomes available. You can see it is pending. It has to be available. Gateway is now available. Next thing is you have to create attachments for the two VPCs. So click on transit gateway attachments. When I attempted last time I had created this, I already deleted that, so that is actually showing up here. It will take some time for clearing it, but we have to create new one. So the first one is VPC default, Transit Gateway ID, attachment type is VPC. If you want to see other attachment type, you can see that here, direct connect gateway or peering connection with another transit gateway, or VPN with your on-premises network. VPC attachment, you can leave it as default. VPC ID, select the default VPC. Subnet IDs, if you select these subnets, it will actually create transit gateway VPC attachment for each of these subnets. Actually, our EC2 is in this 130, so it only requires this one, but anyway, I am going with the default selections. Come down, click on create transit gateway attachment. I need to create one more attachment for the new VPC. So click on create transit gateway attachment, call it VPC new, transit gateway ID, same transit gateway, attachment type VPC, VPC ID, here you have to select new VPC, come down, there is only one subnet anyway, come down and click on create transit gateway attachment. So here the two transit gateway attachments are actually coming up. So let's wait till it comes up and then we will check ping again and see if it works. So both the attachments are now available. You can see that here. So I have attached the two VPCs to transit gateway. So ping should work, is it? Let me try ping. It will not work. You can wait for 2 minutes and see it will not work. The reason being, you have attached the VPCs but you haven't updated the route table. Okay, so that is the next step which we are going to do. So let me use Ctrl+C and close this. Go back to your console and go to your VPCs and go to your subnets. There are two subnets. This origin subnet, that is where I have created my default VPC EC2. So find out the route table of that subnet. Click on that. Here route table is there. Click on that. Come down, click on routes. You can see that there are only two routes. There are no routes towards 10.0.0.0/24, which is the CIDR range of the other VPC. So we need to add that. So edit routes, come here, add route, and destination is what? Destination is the IP address range of the other VPC, which is this 10.0.0.0.24. Target, where will you send it to? I will send it to transit gateway. So select transit gateway and the transit gateway ID. That's it. Save the changes. So I have updated the route table of my default VPC subnet, but then I need to do it for the other subnet also, which is the other subnet which is in my new VPC, this one, private subnet in new VPC. Click on that, click on the route table and select that route table ID. Look at the routes. You can see that already I have added one route towards the transit gateway to keep it faster. I have already created that. Towards the other VPC IP address range, I have added a route. If anybody sends a message, it will route it to the transit gateway. Okay, this is good. So the routes are updated. Now go back and do the ping again. You can see that the ping is actually successful. Let me again use Ctrl+C. Now if you go to your transit gateway route tables at this point, transit gateway route tables, refresh, select this, go to propagations. You can see that whatever routes we added in the two VPCs, actually that they are propagated here. If you go to the routes, you will see that the two routes which you had added in the two VPCs, that actually is getting reflected here. So if anybody is sending a message through transit gateway towards this IP address, it will send it to this particular attachment which corresponds to the new VPC. This is the new VPC and this is the default VPC. So basically you can see that you don't need to directly add the routes in transit gateway route table. If you want to add, you can do create static route and then you can add it, but otherwise it gets automatically propagated. Okay, so that's it for this lab exercise. We saw how transit gateway can be used for peering two VPCs, and we saw how EC2s belonging to two subnets in these VPCs, how they are able to ping between each other using this transit gateway. And before you close, please ensure that you terminate your EC2s, you delete the transit gateway attachments, and finally you delete the transit gateway. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please try it out and let me know in comments how it went. I'll come back with more similar videos. Please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you. Bye.